Slam Team Whelps representative. This is who, yeah, she's a big deal. This is who we are sending to represent us in this national competition that is going to happen here. I have flyers. You want to be here. All the best poets are coming. And this is our best poet this year, y'all. She is just starting out a little bit, but you wouldn't know it from anything in her performance and her writing. I want you guys to give her a lot of love as we welcome up Miss Kayla.
Those are my coworkers. Thanks, guys. This is crazy. I never expected this to happen, let alone so soon after I started doing spoken word and slam poetry. And yeah, it's crazy. So yeah, I'm just gonna jump right into it. How many pieces of clothing does Abigail have? I look up from my survey, listen to Esther's Swahili translation, hear the answer. 4. I look back at the paper I've been provided, at the perfect healthy white family printed at the top, clothed in white t-shirts that were probably only worn once for the photograph. I write down 2 skirts, 2 shirts, and in a flash of the white paper, see myself at Abigail's age, 7, dresser full of underappreciated clothing, some of which I probably only wore once, if ever. She has fewer clothes to her name than years on earth. And back home, I always thought the kids on child sponsorship commercials must be the worst off the producers could find. But the Tanzanian kids squatting before me, bare feet and torn t-shirts hanging off skinny shoulders, have the eyes I've seen on TV. And these kids, they're everywhere. In classrooms, passing through banana trees and rows of corn with buckets of water balanced on their heads, between the cell phone kiosks and butcher shops where cuts of cattle hang from hooks, more meat on their bones than these children on theirs. And I've seen few cows here that didn't appear starving, like the dogs who scavenge meals from piles of garbage awaiting incineration, like men wearing low-cut shirts that reveal ribs sticking out of chests, sometimes farther than the ribs of the street dog I named Jet. I interviewed Samueli, and he wants to be a pilot. Ziada wants to be a teacher. She already is, teaching a member of a population far more educated than her people, but there's more to literacy rates and mathematical proficiency than availability and quality. These kids have determination and passion. I've never heard a white kid beg for more math problems after murmuring numbers under his breath for 2 hours in Swahili. It sounds to me like prayers, like a message to their God. Look, you may have given us a rough start, but we're making something of ourselves. They're all going somewhere, just like they all came from somewhere. Monica is only 2.5, but won't ever neglect the opportunity to write the alphabet the way her mother neglected the opportunity to raise a beautiful girl. And Aaliyah practices pseudo karate on me. Even though when I look at his legs, I feel like I'm staring into a black and white photo of a Holocaust victim, but Aaliyah has more color in his skin than I do in my blue eyes. Blue skies were copious, while the sunny state of Colorado was shrouded in snow clouds and gray flakes falling exhaust, clinging to tires on iced over streets like dirt of a grassless field, to soccer feet naked save for sandals. And I ran around with thorns in my feet, hoping I could pick up some belief in their Jesus. Even went to a Catholic service, but the most holy moment for me was the sound of a baby bursting out crying, breathing deep into tiny lungs, breaking the silence of our knees, pressed into prayer. Would, yeah, maybe believing still isn't right for me, but learning and observing have never felt closer to religion. My senses became an overexposed photograph. I became hyper-aware of everything, captured the finest details in every snapshot, so I'm taking this all with me. Every instant that I realized I have way too much, and they are far from having enough. Every widow whose smile said happy, but eyes said I've seen hell. Danny's 6-year-old gums, black and bleeding. The 11-year-old boy at my taxi window begging for money. An amputated windshield wiper in one hand, a bucket of soapy water in the other. The screams of one brother beaten by another. I'm putting this all into my self-portrait photograph. Look here, and you might catch a glimpse of a different kind of heartbroken. Thank you. 2 nights ago, the moon looked like a teacup that had lost its handle and was on the verge of tipping, stars spilling out like milky splashes. I thought it looked a little too cliche to write down. But last night, a meteor shower cried white, fast-forward tears from infinity's edge, and Monday night bloomed from a lame cliche to a beautiful observation of nightlife is not always a high life, and things are not always this pretty from the ground. I wonder who made the phone call to police about the young man jumping from the 13th floor of Turner Hall on UNC's campus. Was it someone who heard the double-pane fixed window break, or someone who watched his body flash by like a bird failing in flight? Or was it someone out on a late-night walk who saw his body hit the ground with the momentum of a desire to die? I spent 4 years in high school with Morgan Terrell, yet during my visit to an internet cafe in Tanzania, when the news of his death popped up on my Facebook newsfeed, I thought all the talk was of some celebrity, some football player who had died in sudden tragedy, didn't even recognize his name, but his face, I can't forget. It's a face I never bonded with, a smile I saw in the hallways but ignored, lips I saw performing in the auditorium but hardly made conversation with. The police make statements like, a person named Morgan Terrell, and I get angry at the simplicity, the flatness like the metal slab of the autopsy room, as if that is a reflection of who he was, just a person. I get angry, but who am I to claim there's more when I barely knew him myself? Some people we don't recognize as part of our lives until we are scrolling through the online guest book attached to obituary. I've never set foot on that campus, but I have a clear image in my head of his body in the grass aerial view like they have for actresses in episodes of Law and Order. Clear image in my head of the top floor, boarded up window. Broken windows are temporary. That one will be replaced. Freshman students in 4 years won't even know the significance, but suicide is permanent. Suicide is so permanent. The word twists in my gut with the intention to stay. My best friend and I talk about Morgan's death, and I tell her, you know, I've been there before. My lowest of lows, contemplating how to do it. But honestly, I believe that in that very last second, before I jumped, before I kicked the chair, before I pulled the trigger, I would regret my choice. But it would be too late. I sit here, tears in my eyes, wishing they were falling stars that could hold him back down to earth in case he wished someone held him back the second his feet left the window that wasn't meant to be open. There are frames in our lives we aren't meant to pass through, doors that are meant to be kept shut. Morgan, you didn't have to take that step. You've fallen from more than a stage on an off night. I know this is useless now. I guess it's more for the listeners. If you feel like you want to fall from a 13-story stage, stay up there. Hold the spotlight to your eyes, steal the microphone, put up red flags as flyers so you have an audience and an ambulance. Discard the gun like a piece of evidence you don't want the best detectives to discover. Tie that rope into a figure 8, you know, it looks just like the infinity sign. That's your life. And please, pretend that ledge is just a stage and step down, because if you jump off, results are permanent. And everything else, the pain or the numbness, the tears or the lack of feeling, this poem, everything else is temporary. This too shall pass, so you don't have to. Rest in peace. Morgan Terrell, born January 12th, 1992, departed December 3rd, 2011. Rest in peace.
Good job, you're killing it.
I've been such a nervous wreck all week. You can ask any of my friends. I'm already really nervous all the time. And then you throw this at me and I'm just like a mess. I got a message on my iPod during a break in one of my classes from Bianca, like confirming one of our rehearsals. And all of a sudden one of my classmates was like, "What's wrong with you?" And I was like, "Oh, I just got this message and it makes me really nervous." And she's like, "Oh." I was like, "Thanks." So yeah, I don't know. I get really nervous easily. Above the head of an Afghan boy, drawing constellations in the sand, over the back of a woman bent in labor in a Kazakhstan tobacco field, there is a blanket of stars. And the United States has staked a claim to 50 of them. 50, stole them from the night blue with greedy fingers, stitched them to a piece of fabric and threw them back into the sky by drilling a hole into the moon to say, "This is ours," with their names spelled out in stripes. But those stars are not the moon's sky. The American flag is not my security blanket. The Bill of Rights is not my map to freedom. And the words on the Statue of Liberty, "Give me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses yearning to breathe free. Do not call me home." The moon wears that American flag, the way an officer carries his gun in the holster after shooting a woman mistaken for a wanted man, full of shame. If the moon could crater this country's claim away from her body, she would feel more whole than ever. If she could bleed until our tides turn red, push gravity even farther from herself, I bet she would. I bet every time the U.S. sends a rocket to launch, there was another scar carved into her sky, another streak of Milky Way extinguished by the ash of another mission. The American mission has never been the preservation of natural beauty. The mission has been keeping a belt around this country's fat gut. And in the poorest towns of Mexico, women are so hungry they have hip bones that stick out like footholds on rock climbing walls. So the U.S. turned that belt into a wall and dared those women to carry the weight of their families over. Those carrying the weight in the form of a soon-to-be-born child have bellies as round as the moon. And just because they aren't dented and dinged by atmospheric misfires, don't believe for a second that that skin surface is any less holy because there is a child inside. A someday little girl who will be brought into this better life, and in this better life she will be constantly turned away at the gates of opportunity with her feet planted on the land of opportunity. She will grow with scoliosis from the way she bends in attempt to dodge all the hatred pointed at her like paring knives. She will hunger for something better as her brain grows and her ribs move closer to the skin and her stomach closer to her spine. I don't know how many vertebrae are in my back, but I bet mothers in small Latin American villages run their fingers over each piece of bone that holds their children together, their bones wearing away before their age even reaches double digits. This poem is not my statement of anti-space exploration. What I'm trying to say is this. There are faces in the places we live in that are ignored or simply not seen, and if we looked at the tides of tears that those faces have formed, we'd see something more pulling than the moon, more pushing than the gush of plate tectonics. We'd see where the seams of our flag have unraveled into misguided morals, the way our map has a key with colors other than white, the way words of welcome have been misspoken in the asteroid damage of countless missions. We'd reach into the cheekbones of the African boy yearning for science books, of the woman stringing tobacco leaves for a wage she may never receive, and we'd pull out a reminder that that moon is our satellite, and we'd find a new orbit for exploration. As I sit here, trying to decide my method of consolation, the arm of the couch you lean into holds you better than I, and I watch the first tear fall from your eye and over the bridge of your nose like everything you kept inside is finally flooding, and I can feel our connection drowning. So even as you let it all pour, my ears fill with water instead of your words. When we first met, I was water around you. Now the pool party has become our individual needs for lifeboats to save us from each other. I try to put my best foot forward as I stand to get you a tissue, only able to give you items that pause the signs of pain while your silence pleads me for something more personal, but our personalities never matched. I wish I could match the way you cared for me, or the way anyone cares for me for that matter. I have a bleeding disorder that causes me to clot easy, and though I could sit here and blame my lack of ability to pour out anything meaningful in any substantial amount, the blood would dry before my words came out, and before you sympathize, someone whose heart doesn't receive enough blood would tell you how they give love like it's pulsing for eternity. If I could give you eternity, I probably wouldn't. It's not you, it's me. No, really, I mean that, because giving has never been my strong suit, let alone for any length of time that exceeds my attention span. I try to give you my attention tonight, but all I can think of is every other time we found ourselves here, and that's why I left you. Maybe that's why you leaned to the couch for an embrace rather than me. I imagine it reads your thoughts better than I do. We called each other girlfriend, but I wasn't much of a friend, and I've been teetering away from girl on this teeter-totter that also holds my up and down feelings for you. I ended things on a down that didn't have enough weight on the other end to bring it back up, or maybe I just didn't push off the ground. I felt too attached to the way the soil filled the maze of my shoe prints that I was afraid to see the way the sun looked behind the butterflies in my belly, and now I can't even stand to look the sky in her eyes as you finish crying, but I know it's not over, not for you anyway. But every last ounce of effort and emotion I had for this is gone. The way I've been gone this whole time, in early dismissal, you're the only thing that stayed behind. So I try to be there, to come back, to hold on, to hold you as you are, coming down from the downslope. Slow down of this moment, lost and alone, while I still try to figure out how to wrap my arms around you. You're in aisle 15, trying to decide between canned corn and canned green beans. Trying to decide which texture will sit better in your stomach tonight. That's not really what you're thinking about. You're thinking about which vegetable will less closely resemble bits of your brother's body spread over 3 miles of asphalt in Texas. Are you finding everything all right? The grocery clerk says the words with thoughtless rhythm, like the systematic beating of a heart that's run bloodless. And this is the part where you just want to crush the cans, want to throw yourself into the innocent woman's face and scream, "No, I still haven't found the answer." Make her blink once or twice, cough the zombie from her lungs, but you reply, "Yes, just fine, thank you." Hope she doesn't catch the tremble hanging from your lips with a thick chain gripped somewhere down your throat, wrapped around and around the broken down part of you like the chain around his ankles. You pass the meat counter, bones that have been separated with one elbow movement of a knife, and you think of his elbows, the bones worn down as he dragged them to keep his head up, and you think of how when he held them back like that, the bone powder must have turned into feathers of wings because they were swerving back and forth, and he was still conscious. He was still conscious while the world's lazy eyes turned ignorant. They're still sleeping. While you search for candles to light tonight, but the white wax holds you back. The white tiles give no support to the soles of the shoes you wore to his funeral. Your brother should have had an open casket 40 years later, shouldn't have been decapitated at the age of 49. You surrender to this thought daily. Images of pickup trucks make you break down quicker than transmissions about to quit. You really wish they had quit after the conversation, after the beating, after 1 mile before it had even started. You never knew a body could be so dehumanized. He was a human, and torn to shreds is an understatement. You don't understand how 3 men could do that to a brother. That's the answer that you're searching for in a goddamn grocery store, but you find it. On September 20th, 2011, the day before Lawrence Russell Brewer's execution, you find it in his words, "As far as any regrets, no. I have no regrets, no. I do it all over again to tell you the truth." His voice is that of history. The shit happens constantly, some fucked up ideology in line to check out. "Paper or plastic, man?" Tell her, "You don't know. Both tear as easily as flesh. How can you expect either to hold your groceries when the weight you carry is so much more?" There are days when the forgiveness you gave drags you down. The idea that maybe your brother was some sacrifice for God so the world could get some messages, no comfort. There are days when all you need is the space between his shoulder and his head to rest your own, and then you think of his head severed by a culvert, however brain and skull intact. That doesn't even surprise you, because if 3 men could commit that crime and finish with souls intact, anything is possible, except for a few things like it's impossible for you to ever see a smile again. Colorado Rockies hat hitched up on his forehead, like it's impossible for you to ever hear the notes that could only be made from his lips press the brass of his trumpet, like it's impossible for the title of sister to ever feel the same coming from your voice as it did before that night. He said he was gonna put Jasper on the map, Betty. He put it in our hearts along with every ounce of his beauty, and that holds more weight than any hate crimes prevention act, any paragraph in a history book, any shrine, or any execution ever could. Woo! That was about James Byrd Jr.'s murder, in case you didn't know about that, or didn't. I don't know. Some people don't know. Anyway, educate yourself.
Kayla. Thank you.
You have scars as straight as standing soldiers, lined up like salutes to a flag you were coerced into supporting. And the healed flesh is so thick, there are wrinkles on the new tissue that you only see on army men whose guns escaped war with less internal wear than their militant souls. Yeah, I know that shit happened a long time ago, but I'm aware of how deep those razors actually reached. Your scars are purple hearts for the lost cause of forgetting the hurt, and let's face it, we both used to think you had invisible wings attached where your shoulders become dull blades, but that notion has perished into feather rash, and though I wish it could all collect in the urn of my spine, I can only dream of protecting your past that way. See, your ribs remind me of bayonets, keeping outsiders away from that pixelated, blurry-edged heart of yours. I'm afraid that if you hug me from behind, those spears will piece the ceramic home I've made for your broken pieces, which I keep lodged between vertebrae, twisted and curved by scoliosis, and I can't bear another scar for the sake of some love song. Despite this, I noticed today that the largest snowflakes collapse upon contact with my patient-gloved hand, while the smallest, most delicate seem to cling on forever. Despite everything, I realize that's how I want to make you feel. Your crumbling and melting away though. The picturesque edges that once reflected light collapse like defeated children. A lost sense of purpose, you know. I feel like I've lost you in a way deeper than death. A swell in my gut threatening to burst in self-blame. I fear you. I fear you with the steel pressed between your fingers, angled on your flesh. I fear you with the paper of my heart pressed between your fingers. Sometimes paper cuts bleed the least but sting the most. They leave scars in places you can't hide beneath the stitching of clothing. Will my touch be too rough for you? By the time you're done leaving your reminders on my fingertips, I'm not trying to guilt you, not trying to make this worse, but you're not the only one who bled that night. It got really bad. Me on the other side of the bathroom door begging you to stop. I never stopped begging you, but learned something about keeping quiet when I turned it on myself. Obtained razors and methods I learned from you. Chose regions of my body based on your rationale. Now tell me how to recover you, you delicate snowflake. With my cross-hatched fingertips, self-inflicted scars, and these pieces of your past lodged in my backbone. Now tell me how to straighten this out, because as much as I bleed with you, I can't live without this curve in my back. It's how I've learned to stand upright, slightly off center, not quite in tune with gravity. So hold me to the ground and pull yourself from my bones. Stitch those scraps to your scars. I can't be your savior anymore. I've got my own damaging breakdowns. I can only exist for you. But I'll become the poster child for existentialism if it just means you will stay here. If it just means you will walk off that battlefield with your head held high. Tonight, I'm keeping the windshield wipers at one speed too slow, hoping I appreciate the clarity just a little more when it comes. Those blades with their torn rubber gliding across the windshield, and it works. Every 10 seconds is a sigh of relief and an eyeful of some sort of clarity I've been unable to find outside of this vehicle, out there in the real world, beyond the tire to asphalt. 2 days later, I am driving the same route and notice the dead fox that has been decomposing under the sun next to the white dash line under U-Haul tires for over a week. All that remains is the fur held down by dried blood, and I wonder how fur is left but the bones aren't, and I wonder why the strength of the rain was enough to bring me fresh sight but not enough to wash the innocence of this gore away. The following afternoon, I'm a 50-yard-away witness of a purple balloon escaping from the backseat of a red car, and watching that latex-trapped helium float towards the half-mast sun made me think of your departure. And while I wanted that image to turn into a poem, I did not want that poem to be about you. So I find myself putting one foot behind the other, hoping I can step back into the scene and pull something else from my mind, but every part of me wants to linger on you and the fact that it has been months, though all I was able to compose from your leaving were pieces of poems, lines jammed together awkwardly like friends and family of the waiting room of a funeral home. I'd always been afraid I would not cry the day you passed away. Even though you were one of my favorite relatives, far past the day I realized you no longer knew who I was. My fear is met with dead accuracy. Till one of the final minutes of the service, when I find my eyes wet with the tears I thought had abandoned me. I don't think it's fair to say you abandoned me when you left at the age of 91, but there was a certain sense of emptiness I discovered at your leaving. See, my backstepping isn't working, and now I'm more caught up in those brightly colored hats you used to wear, the green tile of your mobile home, the Mardi Gras skit I performed on your 80th birthday, and my embarrassment when Jenny told me what Mardi Gras really is. These memories have stuck with me, will stick with me until my own memory withers the way yours did. Stella Aniela Potter, you stuck with me from birth, and I still catch my mother and I using your lines like, not to worry, and upright and perpendicular. I'm trying to stay upright and perpendicular every time my life seems too hard, trying to remember that you lived through the Great Depression in Buffalo, New York winters before your spine even began sloping. Great grandma, forgive me for the way my shoulders roll forward. I was only trying to keep my chin up while leaning closer to the earth. Your ashes are laid upon your ashes upon this earth. Are more beautiful than the fox's fur, but carry the same message. I think both your souls floated towards the sun the way that balloon did, and I think this downpour will someday pour all of us back into the earth to feed something new to grow. Stella Aniela Potter, my great-grandma, please remind me that this parting is only temporary, just a long highway drive in a night of newfound clarity. Thank you. Okay, I have two left. This next one, I might fuck up completely. That's the one I memorized most recently. And it's kind of a weird poem. I guess it's just fun. And then every time I read it, I realize how morbid it is and kind of awkward. But it's not. It's kind of like a fictional poem. I'm not really gonna do this to anyone, so don't like call the cops on me or anything. That's all. You got caught in the catacomb of Bristletooth, your hacksaw slack jaw, letting words goggle lucid from the elbow of your lips. I remind you that I don't like love songs, and you babble that you know. Come cleaner than this. You're no jabberwocky, walkie-talkie, smooth walking, talking two-stepper, no. More like a drunk love dancing funk on Formica to an empty room. I'll be the guest if you want, yeah, I paid at the door. Fought the juke bird along the forest freeway here. Heart-shaped leaves fell, left dents in my knees where I prayed you wouldn't sing me a love song, but I guess some answers don't come in time, like 8 balls in drought, no water to spin an answer. You used to spin answers to my nerve-wrecking balls. Now hush my fears with I don't want to hear it. There's a dollar store candy dish with 3 packs of matches by the door. Don't tempt me, don't challenge me to a house of cards. I build the frame of yours with red-tipped wood sticks. I'm no pyro. Not one to start fires, but they call me a goddamn arsonist for the way I am burning our bridge. Leave the char and ashes, dear. There will be no pieces to pick up. Now scream. Scream like it's a song you sing, like you know how this will end, cause you do. I'm passing through the locomotive of your presence, an engine fire that can't be saved by the fire engine of regret this night for the fight we fit into your endpoint pirouette moves through me, grabbing my heart with extended arms and balleting the beating red into a dizzy spin win for mistakes we knew we were making. If there's a victory for anyone in this, it's mine. Hooked up in the pair of handcuffs they'll haul me off in. Good thing I know sign language, so I can send an SYS behind my back. Save your ship. Because my prayer dented knees, their pleas for anti-love songs, my wrecking ball shoulder sockets, my bloody bleeding heart pumped by gas pump gasoline, and the lighter in my hand are about to lodge in the propeller of your cruise. I hope you have a plan for survival. I didn't fuck up.
Yeah, Kayla.
When I was a little kid, I wanted to grow up to be a teacher or an author. Is it too late to change my answer? I'd rather be a tree or a porch swing so I'm no longer too heavy with the weight of problems to be lifted by the breeze. I want to hold someone in the middle of a silent summer night and leave the smallest of rope splinters in her hands so she can realize that sometimes it hurts to hold on, but there are times she can't let go without falling, and there are also times when it's okay to fall if that puts her on better ground. Yesterday, I saw a license plate that read 1.6191. I want to tell the driver that as much as teachers stress the importance of the decimal place, they should have stressed the importance of her place on earth even more. I want to be a decimal point on every bruise she has ever buried, turned to a period so she knows it can stop. She is a gift she gives, not a batting cage battered by the bad swing of a man who used to be loved. There are swinging movements less brutal than bicep to forearm to fist. Remember the porch swing. Sip tea, someday dreams. Does it hurt you now to be cradled that way? To be carried by a touch that is no longer in tune? Can I tell her that if she gets out of tune, she should turn to a wind instrument, so all she needs is her breath. All we need is our breath. Become a whistle tune, or harmonica, or first grader's plastic flute. Our lips don't need to be pressed to someone else's just to make music. Just listen to the symphony of wind kissing pine needles. That sound is anything but sharp in every second beauty. Our spines are the bridge to beauty from the brain to the soul, and he can break backbones with his exploding verbal grenades, but vocal cords never collapse. And as thin as skin may be, there are actually 8 layers within the 3 layers. Let me say, baby, you are tough. And no one takes the vertebrae out of you. No matter how hard a wind chime clashes upon itself in a tornado, it doesn't break. Neither does she. She's a cinder block his black belt and abuse can't crack. She's a levee between the flood of her husband's anger and the fear in her children's eyes. She's alive. A tea kettle about to boil hotter than his hot breath. She breathes lullabies. Secret survival. That's all she needs. In the grips of her hands on the ropes of a porch swing. Me. But I can smell her cigarette smoke on my knuckles, almost as if I could sucker punch her nicotine addiction away. But if I could do that, I would have bloody knuckled every backhanded beating, every one too many drink he sipped, every order and command down a vending machine with no soda, no chips, just a coin return. So the only option is change. And even if I'm not 1 in 3 women beat beaten, coerced, abused. I've got her back, I'm on her side. If this is you, this poem is for you. Don't give up, don't give in. You are more life than statistic, more bruised than buried, more value to self than reliance. You are woman, you are woman, you are us, you are we, and we stand upright. We survive and kiss life because nothing can take that right. So I may not grow up to be a tree or a porch swing or even a teacher or an author for that matter, but every woman can have my body as her safe house, and this house is a place for anyone already standing or anyone needing a hand to stand. This is for you. Thank you.